Let's face it, most people lack the courage to openly admit they dislike you. Instead, they mask their feelings with superficial smiles, insincere compliments, and forced pleasantries. Stoicism teaches us to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be, and the truth is, many of us have mistaken such hollow gestures for genuine connection, only to later discover the hidden envy or resentment lurking beneath. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but recognizing these signs is essential. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to focus on what we can control, our time, energy, and attention. Why waste these precious resources on relationships built on deception or shallow appearances? In this video, we'll strip away the illusion and examine the subtle signs that someone may harbor dislike for you. Even if they hide it well, it won't be easy to hear, but the Stoic path values truth over comfort. After all, as Seneca said, he suffers more than necessary. Who suffers before it is necessary? By facing the reality of these relationships now, you can free yourself from unnecessary pain and cultivate authentic connections instead. 1. They're always joking about your flaws. We've all encountered someone who seems to enjoy turning you into the punchline. They'll pick at your quirks, your mistakes, or even the things that make you unique. They do it with a smile, saying, "I'm just joking." At first it might seem harmless, even playful, but let's not fool ourselves. These jokes are often more than simple banter. They're calculated digs cloaked in humor, designed to chip away at your confidence piece by piece. I remember being close to someone who always had a comment about me, how I dressed, the way I spoke, even the projects I worked hard on. At first I laughed it off, thinking it was all in good fun. But over time I noticed a pattern. Their jokes weren't random. They were always aimed at my perceived weaknesses, never at my strengths. Before long, I started doubting myself, wondering if I was the problem. Were these flaws as glaring as they made them out to be? The Stoics teach us to observe life with clarity and to separate what's within our control from what's not. In this case, those jokes weren't about humor. They were subtle tests, the way of asserting control, by seeing how much disrespect I would tolerate. It's a quiet form of manipulation, and it's insidious because it's disguised as harmless fun. Worse, society often conditions us to believe that if we can't take a joke, we're the ones at fault. But as Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. I realized that by laughing along, I wasn't just tolerating their behavior. I was encouraging it. I was complicit in my own disrespect. It wasn't until I began setting boundaries that I noticed a shift, not just in how they treated me, but in how I viewed myself. Here's the hard truth. People who consistently joke about your flaws aren't doing it out of affection. They're testing the waters, seeing how far they can push you. It's not humor. It's a way of asserting dominance while keeping you in your place. And the most dangerous part, they often get away with it, because we've been taught that good friends should be able to laugh at each other. But Stoicism teaches us to question what we tolerate. Ask yourself, is this truly funny, or is there something more beneath the surface? If the answer is the latter, don't brush it off, call it out. Yes, this might lead to uncomfortable conversations, or even strained friendships. But as Marcus Aurelius said, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't see it as an injury. And it's not standing up for yourself isn't overreacting. It's self-respect. True friends don't need to tear you down to lift themselves up. They celebrate your strengths and support you in overcoming your weaknesses without making you the butt of the joke. Allowing disrespect, even in jest, is a slippery slope. It starts with small comments but can escalate, leaving you questioning your worth. The more you allow it, the more they'll push until you're left doubting yourself, not because their words are true, but because you didn't stand up for yourself. Life is too short to surround yourself with people who fail to see your value. As Seneca wisely noted, associate with those who will make you a better person. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. If someone's idea of friendship revolves around constantly pointing out your flaws, it's time to reevaluate their place in your life. By setting boundaries, you're reclaiming your power. You're no longer allowing others to define your narrative. When I stopped laughing along, I noticed not only how they changed, but also how I changed. I began to see myself in a clearer, more positive light, not defined by their words, but by my own. So here's my advice. The next time someone makes a joke at your expense, pause. Ask yourself if it's truly harmless, or if it's a subtle way of undermining you. If it's the latter, don't be afraid to call them out. It might be awkward, and it might even lead to the end of the friendship. But remember, your self-respect is worth far more than their misguided sense of humor. True friends don't need to diminish you to feel good about themselves. They lift you up and stand by your side. Without turning your vulnerabilities into entertainment, don't let anyone reduce you to a punchline. Stand tall, speak up, and surround yourself with those who value you for who you are. In the end, living with courage and clarity, hallmarks of Stoic philosophy, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. 2 backhanded compliments, the subtle art of undermining. We've all experienced it. Someone gives you a compliment, but instead of lifting you up, it leaves you questioning yourself. It's the kind of remark that feels more like a velvet slappo than genuine praise. You pause and think, wait, was that a compliment or an insult? The harsh reality is that it's often both. These backhanded compliments are designed to look like kindness on the surface, but beneath they carry a hidden agenda to undermine you. I remember pouring my heart into a project I was incredibly proud of. After dedicating countless hours of effort, I finally shared it with a group of colleagues. One of them, someone I thought was a supporter, looked at me and said with a smile, "Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you." Those last few words hit me like a ton of bricks. On the surface, it seemed like praise, but it was laced with doubt and condescension. What do they mean by someone like me? Was I not supposed to be capable of good work? The Stoics remind us to view life with clarity and not be fooled by appearances. As Marcus Aurelius said, be content with what you are and see things as they are. These so-called compliments are rarely about uplifting you. Instead, they are a subtle way for the giver to assert superiority, keeping you in your place while making you question your abilities. They're saying, I see you trying, but you'll never be as good as me. Here's the deeper truth: people who give backhanded compliments often act out of their own insecurities. They see your strengths and your potential, and it unsettles them. To cope, they mask their fears with subtle jabs disguised as praise, patting you on the back while quietly holding you down. Their words are not about you. They are reflections of their own struggles with self-worth. And let's be honest, we've all done this at some point, maybe unintentionally, but our own insecurities have slipped out in the form of a compliment, meant to keep someone else in check. Recognizing this is an opportunity for growth, both in how we treat others and how we respond when it happens to us. Epictetus teaches us that we cannot control what others say, but we can control how we respond. When you receive a backhanded compliment, you don't have to accept it. Instead, recognize it for what it is, a reflection of the other person's insecurities, not a measure of your worth. For example, if someone says you're smarter than you look, or this is great for someone new at this, you can challenge it, respond calmly but directly. Thanks. But what do you mean by that? This approach forces the person to confront the hidden insult in their words. Most of the time it catches them off guard, and they quickly backtrack. It's not about creating conflict. It's about refusing to let their words define you. By addressing it head-on, you reclaim your power and demonstrate that you won't play their game. Seneca reminds us, associate with those who will make you a better person, and welcome those who you yourself can improve. Surround yourself with people who genuinely celebrate your successes and see your value without strings attached. Life is too short to waste on relationships that leave you doubting. Your self-compliments should lift you up, not tear you down. If someone's words leave you questioning your worth, it's time to question their intentions instead. The Stoics teach us that our worth is not up for debate. It is defined by how we see ourselves and the virtues we cultivate, not by the judgments of others. When you start to see backhanded compliments for what they are, their power over you diminishes. Instead of internalizing them, you can almost laugh them off, knowing they say more about the giver than they ever could about you. So here's the takeaway. Don't let anyone's veiled negativity shape your narrative. Whether it's a jealous colleague, a misguided friend, or even a family member, remember that you control the story you tell yourself. Stand firm in your value and let their words roll off your back like water. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, who celebrate your achievements with sincerity, and who challenge you to grow without cutting you down. By doing so, you align yourself with the core principles of Stoicism: clarity, self-respect, and the pursuit of what truly matters. 3. They subtly exclude you from plans. It's the small things that often hurt the most, like realizing your so-called friends accidentally forgot to invite you to dinner, a party, or a weekend getaway. They'll swear it was an oversight, claim it was last minute or worse, assume you were too busy anyway. But let's not deceive ourselves. These aren't accidents. This is social exclusion at its most subtle, Sue, and it sends a clear message. You're not as valued as you might think. I've been on the receiving end of this far too often. One weekend, I checked my phone and saw photos of a group of friends having a great time at an event I would have loved to attend. The worst part, not one person had mentioned it to me beforehand. When I brought it up casually later, I was met with excuses. Oh, we thought you were busy, or it was such a last-minute plan. But deep down, I knew the truth. If they wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew about it. The Stoics teach us to observe life as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. In this case, the truth was clear. This wasn't mere thoughtlessness. It was deliberate. They didn't want me there, but lacked the courage to say it outright. Instead, they hoped I would quietly fade from the group without confrontation. This kind of behavior is passive-aggressive and cowardly. Yet all too common people avoid addressing it because it's easier to accept flimsy excuses than to confront the painful reality of being pushed out. But as Epictetus said, it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When you ignore the signs, you give others permission to continue treating you as an afterthought. For a long time, I stayed silent, hoping these accidental exclusions would stop. I thought maybe, just maybe, the next time would be different. But silence only reinforced my position as unimportant in their lives. By not addressing the issue, I was complicit in my own exclusion. Eventually, I realized that I had to reclaim control over my narrative. So I started calling them out. Not angrily, but firmly. When I noticed it happening again, I said, "Hey, I saw you went out last weekend. Why wasn't I invited?" It wasn't easy and made things awkward, but it forced them to confront their behavior. The responses varied. Some people got defensive, while others apologized and tried to make up for it. Regardless, the dynamic shifted. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Confronting exclusion may feel uncomfortable, but it is the path to clarity. It's better to know where you truly stand than to wonder why you were left out. Over time, addressing these moments gave me a clearer sense of who genuinely valued my presence and who didn't. Here's the deeper lesson. If people truly want you in their lives, they'll make the effort to include you, no matter how last-minute the plan might be. True friends don't forget to invite you. They prioritize your presence because they enjoy your company. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control: our actions, choices, and responses. You can't force someone to value you, but you can choose not to chase approval from those who don't. You deserve relationships where you feel seen, valued, and included, not ones where you're constantly questioning your worth. If you find yourself being subtly excluded, don't brush it off, confront it honestly. Ask the hard questions, even if the answers are what you want to hear. As Seneca said, The truth rarely sits well with those who don't wish to hear it, but it always benefits the one who speaks it. Facing the reality of a relationship is better than clinging to illusions. Remember, you are not a backup option. You are not someone's afterthought. You deserve to be surrounded by people who treat you as a priority, who value your presence as much as you value theirs. Life is too short to waste on relationships that leave you feeling excluded or unimportant. Stand tall, speak up, and don't settle for less than what you deserve. By doing so, you'll not only protect your self-respect, but also create space for genuine connections with those who truly appreciate you. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and make you feel like you belong, because that's the kind of relationship worth investing in. 4. They're only busy when it comes to you. We've all heard it before. I'm so busy these days, sorry. I can't hang out. It's the perfect excuse because, let's face it, who isn't busy? But what happens when you notice a pattern? They're always available for others, posting pictures of their outings and catching up with mutual friends. But when it comes to you, their schedule suddenly becomes impossible. Here's the cold hard truth. They're not too busy. They're just too busy for you. I've experienced this frust situation more times than I'd like to admit. I remember reaching out to a friend I once considered close, trying to set up a time to catch up. Every time I suggested something, they'd have an excuse: I'm working late, or maybe next week. I've got a lot on my plate. Meanwhile, I'd see them on social media, happily hanging out with others. Somehow they always managed to find time for everyone except me. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to see the pattern, but once I did, the message was painfully clear. I wasn't a priority in their life anymore. Stoics teach us to view life with unflinching honesty. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be content with what you are and see things as they are." This situation isn't about their schedule. It's about their priorities. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because it forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. You may not be as important to them as they are to you. Here's the reality. People make time for what and who they care about. When someone is constantly too busy for you, it's not their schedule that's the issue. It's their choice. Busy is often a polite way of saying, "I don't want to spend time with you." It's easier for them to blame it on their calendar than to admit they're choosing not to include you in their life. It's a passive-aggressive way of keeping you at arm's length, without having to deal with the discomfort of telling you the truth. I've been on both sides of this dynamic. There were times when I made excuses because I didn't know how to tell someone I'd outgrown the friendship. But being on the receiving end of it taught me a valuable lesson. It's better to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable, than to string someone along with excuses. When I finally confronted my friend about always being too busy, the conversation was awkward, but it was necessary. It gave me clarity and the strength to move on. I realized I deserved relationships where my time and energy were valued. Epictetus reminds us, it's not the events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If someone is always too busy for you, it's a sign to reassess the relationship. Your time and energy are precious. Don't waste them on people who can't be bothered to make time for you. True friends don't make you chase after their attention. They're excited to see you and make an effort to include you. Not just when it's convenient, but because they genuinely value your company. If someone consistently fails to show up for you, it's not about being needy or demanding. It's about valuing yourself enough to step away from relationships that no longer serve you. The Stoics teach us that change is inevitable. Relationships evolve and people do too. Sometimes we hold on to someone out of habit, nostalgia, or fear of being alone, even when it's clear they've moved on. But there's strength in letting go. As Seneca said, associate with those who will make you a better person and welcome those who you yourself can improve. Letting go doesn't mean failure. It means acknowledging that you deserve more than someone's left. Over time, it's about recognizing your worth and surrounding yourself with people who see it too. So here's the takeaway: if someone is always too busy for you, listen carefully, not just to their words, but to their actions. If they consistently find time for others but not for you, it's time to stop making excuses for them. Reassess the relationship and focus your energy on connections that uplift and sustain you. Remember, your worth isn't measured by someone else's willingness to spend time with you. It's defined by the value you place on yourself and the standards you set in your relationships. Surround yourself with people who genuinely want you in their lives, not out of obligation, but because they truly enjoy your presence. Life is too short to invest in one-sided relationships. Walk away from those who can't see your value and embrace the connections that inspire you to grow. By doing so, you'll embody the core principles of Stoicism: courage, clarity, and unwavering self-respect. 5. They avoid physical contact, a signal you can't ignore. Let's address an uncomfortable truth. Physical contact, or the lack of it, is often more revealing than words. We're not just talking about romantic relationships here. Physical touch is a fundamental part of human connection. A handshake, a pat on the back, or sitting close conveys trust, warmth, and understanding. So, what does it mean when someone avoids even the most casual forms of touch with you? The answer, though uncomfortable, is clear. They're sending a signal of discomfort, and it's time to take notice. I once worked with a colleague who seemed to recoil whenever I reached out for a handshake or a friendly pat on the shoulder. At first, I thought I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just their personality, I told myself, but as time went on, I noticed the pattern. It wasn't universal. They were warm and tactile with others, offering hugs and leaning in during conversations, but with me, it was as though I carried an invisible barrier. Their avoidance wasn't incidental. It was deliberate, and it spoke volumes about the state of our relationship. The Stoics teach us to observe reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. As Marcus Aurelius said, if someone shows you a fault, look to yourself and ask whether it's true. When someone avoids physical contact with you, but is comfortable with others, it's worth reflecting on. Sure, some people value personal space, and that's perfectly valid. But selective avoidance, when they're fine hugging others but visibly uncomfortable around you, is a red flag. Physical contact isn't just about gestures, it's about trust, empathy, and connection. When someone consistently avoids it, they're not just avoiding touch, they're avoiding intimacy and closeness, both physically and emotionally. Their actions often speak louder than words. They may not dislike you enough to say it outright, but their body language does all the talking. And let's be honest, most of us have been on both sides of this equation. Maybe you've hesitated to shake someone's hand, or leaned back when someone got too close, feeling that something was off. Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end, noticing someone flinch or stiffen when you're around. It's awkward and uncomfortable, but it often points to a deeper imbalance in the relationship. The Stoics remind us of the importance of acknowledging reality, even when it's hard. Ignoring these signs or rationalizing them away only leads to frustration and confusion. I've been there, convincing myself that someone's reluctance to engage physically was just a personality quirk. But the more I reflected, the clearer it became. Their behavior wasn't about their general preferences. It was about their relationship with me. When I finally confronted the situation, it wasn't easy. It led to some uncomfortable conversations, and in some cases, the end of the relationship. But it also brought clarity. As Epictetus said, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Facing the truth freed me from the endless second-guessing and allowed me to move forward. So what should you do if someone avoids physical contact with you? Don't ignore it. Consistent avoidance is often more than a preference. It's a statement about their comfort level and connection with you. The Stoic approach is to address it calmly and rationally, focusing on what's within your control. Consider starting a straightforward but non-confrontational conversation. Say something like, "I've noticed you seem uncomfortable when I reach out for a handshake," or pat on the back. Have I done something to make you feel this way? This approach opens the door to understanding without hostility. The outcome may not always be what you hope for. Their avoidance could stem from unresolved issues in your relationship. But as Seneca said, a relationship based on illusions will eventually collapse under the weight of the truth. It's far better to confront reality than to live in denial. Allowing these small actions or their absence to erode your self-esteem. At its core, this issue isn't about physical touch. It's about trust, respect, and connection. If someone avoids contact with you, it may signal that the relationship isn't as strong as you thought. That realization, while painful, provides an opportunity to reassess the relationship and your place in it. You deserve relationships where physical contact feels natural and comfortable. A handshake, a friendly hug, or sitting close without tension are small, but significant gestures that build trust and intimacy. If someone consistently avoids these gestures with you, it's worth asking the hard questions and, if necessary, making the tough decisions to protect your self-respect. Life is too short for relationships that keep you at a distance. Literally and figuratively, surround yourself with people who value your presence, who trust and respect you enough to connect with you openly. Let go of those who don't. In doing so, you'll free yourself from the frustration of one-sided connections and embrace relationships built on mutual trust and understanding. As the Stoics remind us, your time and energy are finite. Spend them wisely, investing in people who uplift and connect with you, and walk away from those who don't. By doing so, you embody Stoic principles: clarity, courage, and unwavering self-respect. 6. They disappear when you need support. Nothing tests the strength of a relationship like a crisis. When life gets tough, you quickly learn who truly stands by your side. So, what does it say when someone vanishes the moment you need them most? It's not just a sign of unreliability. It's a clear warning that they're not as invested in the relationship as you thought. I learned this lesson during one of the hardest times in my life. I was facing a deeply personal challenge, something that shook me to my core. Naturally, I turned to the people I considered close friends. I didn't expect them to solve my problems. Just a small gesture of support, a kind word, a quick call, or even a text, but instead, I was met with silence. The people I'd supported through their own breakups, family issues, and career struggles suddenly had every excuse. I'm so busy at work, or things are crazy right now, but I'll check in soon. Spoiler alert. They never did. The Stoics teach us to view life with clarity, even when the truth is painful. As Marcus Aurelius said, be content with what you are and see things for what they are. The reality is, this many people enjoy the good times, but when things get messy, they vanish. It's easier for them to ghost you than to deal with your pain. Why? Because true support requires effort and empathy, qualities they may not have or choose not to extend to you. Let's be brutally honest, support isn't about convenience. It's about showing up when it's difficult, uncomfortable, and inconvenient. Those who disappear in your darkest moments are telling you without words that your problems aren't worth their time. This isn't just inconsiderate. It's a revelation about where you truly stand in their life. I remember feeling crushed when I realized that people I've been there for in the past couldn't return the favor. It was a harsh wake-up call, but a necessary one. Not everyone who smiles at you or shares good times is truly in your corner. Recognizing this truth freed me from the illusion of certain relationships and allowed me to focus on those who genuinely cared. Epictetus reminds us what troubles you is not the event itself, but your judgment of it. Instead of letting their absence make you bitter, let it make you better. Use these moments as a filter to identify who truly deserves a place in your life. Those who check in, who show up, who stand by you even when it's inconvenient. These are the people who matter. These relationships are rare and precious, and they deserve to be nurtured. Support is the foundation of any meaningful connection. It's easy to stick around when everything is going well, but the real test is how people respond when things fall apart. If someone disappears when you need them most, They weren't failing you, they were revealing the truth about the relationship. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control. You can't change someone's willingness to be there for you, but you can control how you respond. Let go of those who have shown you their true colors. Seneca wisely said, "Associate with those who will make you a better person, and welcome those whom you yourself can improve." Life is too short to invest in fair weather friends. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you during the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. When you find those rare individuals who stick around, when the going gets tough, you found something worth holding on to. And for those who disappear, let them go. Their absence has already done the work of showing you where they stand. Don't dwell on their lack of support. Instead, redirect your energy toward building stronger, more authentic connections. In doing so, you'll embody the core principles of Stoicism: resilience, clarity, and the courage to focus on what truly matters. 7. They gossip about you behind your back. Gossip is a social poison, quick to spread and destructive to trust. It's never as innocent as people like to claim. When someone you consider a friend talks behind your back, they're not just sharing a story. They're actively sabotaging your trust and your relationship. Let's be honest, when someone gossips about you, no matter how friendly they seem in person, they're showing a fundamental lack of respect. I've been the target of gossip, and it's one of the most gut-wrenching experiences. I remember confiding in someone I thought was a close friend, sharing a personal issue to ease the burden I was carrying. I trusted them to keep it private, but within days, details of that conversation began circulating. Twisted and exaggerated, it wasn't just a breach of confidence. It was a betrayal. My vulnerability had been turned into entertainment for others. The Stoics teach us to see things as they are. Gossip isn't harmless chatter, it's a power move. People gossip to elevate themselves by putting others down, all without direct confrontation. It's cowardly, manipulative, and toxic. It doesn't just damage reputations, it destroys the foundation of trust that meaningful relationships are built upon. Here's an uncomfortable truth: those who gossip about others to you will gossip about you to others. Gossip is a pattern, not a one-time lapse. I've seen it too often. Someone who loves sharing juicy details about everyone suddenly grows quiet when you're around. That silence speaks volumes. Epictetus reminds us, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you. If someone consistently engages in gossip, it's a sign that they lack the integrity necessary for a real friendship. I remember confronting the friend who betrayed me, expecting an apology or at least an explanation. Instead, they brushed it off as harmless talk. But here's the truth: gossip is never harmless. It's a betrayal, plain and simple. And it reveals far more about the gossiper than it does about the person being discussed. The Stoic approach to life encourages us to focus on what we can control. While you can't stop someone from gossiping, you can choose how you respond. Set boundaries. Distance yourself from those who thrive on spreading negativity. Life is too short to waste on relationships built on mistrust. Surround yourself with people of character, those who value honesty, respect, and integrity. True friends don't turn your vulnerabilities into stories for others. By walking away from gossip and those who spread it, you honor yourself and embody the principles of Stoicism: clarity, courage, and self-respect. Life is too precious to waste on hidden resentment or relationships built on shaky foundations. The signs we've discussed, whether it's subtle exclusions, gossip, or vanishing acts, are not just behaviors. They're insights into where you truly stand with others. As the Stoics teach us, clarity is a gift even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Instead of dwelling on the actions of those who show disdain, focus on cultivating relationships that are honest, supportive, and uplifting. Recognizing these signs isn't about creating conflict. It's about valuing yourself enough to demand respect and authenticity in your connections. Let go of what doesn't serve your growth and invest in bonds that align with your principles. In the end, it's not about who likes you or dislikes you. It's about how steadfast you remain in your pursuit of truth. Virtue and genuine connection. Stay resilient, stay true, and let your actions speak louder than their hidden intentions